EVO.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the very first episode of Finding Me. I'm Josh Wolf. First of all, I can't tell you how excited I am to do this show. It's the first thing in a long time that nervous isn't the right word. I wasn't nervous, but really excited, a little anxious. I know what I want this show to be. I know how important it could be to me. I've just never done anything like it before. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to have you here with me. I know this is on the Hey Man feed. And I want you guys to know that Jacob and I are starting a new podcast called Jacob and Josh on the Road, where we'll be just filming podcasts in the hotel room. So he and I will be back. But in the meantime, I can't tell you, I even have a notebook. I mean, come on. Notebook? Me? But this is the point of this show. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. And it's the first thing I've ever done where I honestly don't care about views or likes or comments. It's really not the point of this. If nobody ever watched this, I hopefully would still get the same thing out of it that I think I'm gonna get. Look, I think the reason, my art has been real stale lately for me. And I can even tell by my social media feed. I'm like, I'm just going through the motions. And part of the reason is because in the last couple of years, my goals and my dreams and, what I want has changed. And it's become way more personal. And I haven't addressed it. It's become way more personal about, two things that have become so important to me are authenticity and accountability. And the accountability part, this daily podcast, this is something where I show up every day for myself. That's the point of this, right? This is going to be a daily podcast / journal that I'm doing to hold myself accountable, right? To show up for myself every day and hopefully help me be the most authentic me I can to put out what I want into the world, the type of vibe, and help me show what type of vibe, help me become the most authentic me I can by speaking into this camera about the things I'm going to be speaking about, and also to hold myself accountable to do something for myself every day, And look, I've always been a guy who could start a project from zero and have it be something nobody's ever seen before. I've done a bunch of them. And carry that fucking ball all the way down the field to the 1 yard line, but I could just never get it across the goal line. And I used to blame everybody else for it. And looking back on it, all those, and I guess you call them failures, but I wouldn't call them failures. To me, they're all lessons, but they were all because of me. And it all came down to, I never carried the ball across the goal line. I never did the things I know I needed to do that. It all came down to how I felt about myself, self-worth. And for me, the self-worth and self-confidence are two different things. I'm a very confident dude. But the things that I was confident I was able to do, I never felt like I deserved. The best example is this show I used to do called Controlled Chaos. I did leading up to COVID and during COVID. And there were times we did it on Facebook and YouTube where I was getting 500,000 live views. And there were some things I knew that I needed to do in the back of my brain to make it what it could have been. And I just didn't. I didn't invest in, whether it's money or time, in production value, in the type of marketing I know I needed. I was just like, I'm going to put out something fun for me, but I never got it to where I know it could have gone, because I've always seen myself more like this little engine that could, right? As the underdog. Well, I'm never going to get to there, but I'll push it to here and it's going to be great. And so I don't want to be that guy anymore. And the only way to have change in your life is to make changes. And a daily journal, a daily podcast where I'm accountable. And what I mean by accountable is, it's like when I go to the gym. The reason I get a trainer is because I don't want to it's so much easier for me to let myself down than somebody else. But if I have a trainer and this trainer sets up training regimen for me, right? I got to show up. And I want to teach myself to show up for me. Why would somebody else be more important than me? Right. But I think a lot of us do that. And I just don't want to be that guy anymore. I've also always been a people pleaser, which I think has led to a bit of imposter syndrome and questioning who I really am. You know, when you're a people pleaser, you say yes to a lot of different shit, and some of it may be contradictory to each other. But that was all because I was scared of saying no to people or hurting somebody else. I'll tell you something. I used to do a podcast with Freddie Prinze Jr. called Prince and the Wolf. Another great example of something that was fucking amazing, but I didn't do what I knew needed to be done. But on that podcast, which I would say was really the beginning of this journey for me, Freddie Prinze Jr., who I did the show with, talked to me one day about saying no to people. And I was like, yeah. He was like, you don't like saying no to people? I said, nah. And he said, that doesn't make you an asshole saying no. You doing what you want to do, you being true to yourself, doesn't make you an asshole. And you don't have to be an asshole in the way that you say no. But saying no in itself doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you honest. And it was something that I needed to hear at the time. And it was that started my journey. And I've gone in and out of it a bunch of times. I've done some self-help stuff. I've done therapy, and I know I needed something like this to make me do it. This daily check-in from wherever I am. Well, not Saturday or Sunday, but this Monday through Friday podcast from wherever I am to check in and talk about finding me. And this podcast is going to have to do a lot of things. Health. A lot of you talk to me about health and fitness, diet, wellness, longevity, but it's also going to be parenting, marriage, all my life, where I fail, where I succeed. What I want to stop doing is promising myself things and breaking those promises. Because, well, think about it. If you had a friend who always promised you shit and never came through, you'd be like, I don't want to hang out with that person. I don't believe that person. Well, I don't think that changes with yourself. It's just it's subconscious. You're continuously letting yourself down. And I just don't want to do that anymore. So this is going to be a daily podcast that I do to hold myself accountable for who I want to be and what I want to put out in the world. And I'm hoping it will lead to the most authentic version of myself that I can have. And what's funny about authenticity is it seems like it should be the easiest thing in the world. I just go wake up and be myself. Okay. But for a lot of us, it's so hard. We're so bummed about being judged by other people. But the truth is, you're judged no matter what you do. You're judged no matter what you do. But most of us would rather be judged on the pretend person rather than the real person. I don't know if it hurts less because you're like, well, that's not really. fuck. And I know what else you're saying. Josh, just doesn't sound funny. It will be, just by nature of who I am. There's going to be humor in this. And I'm going to be telling stories like the ones at the end of this podcast that are funny or interesting but what I've always tried to make sure whatever I did was just comedy. And I know I'm more than that. But I do want to make it clear. I'm not a guru. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a self-help person. I don't have a God complex. I don't want you to listen to what I do and go, I'm going to do that. If he does it, I'm going to do it. It's trial and error. All this stuff for everything. Everything I'm going to tell you that I do or that I'm trying, it's trial and error. You got to find out what works out for you. You know, a great example of this is, by the way, like I said, I still think farts are funny. So fart jokes still in here. But a great example of things not being for everybody. I was really sick over October and September. I'm not sure if you guys know. I lost like 30 pounds. I was on the infectious disease floor in the hospital. And I had 2 nasty gut bacterial infections at the same time, bacterial gut infections. And I was out of the gym, which was very difficult for me, but I got back in, and a good friend of mine, who's a brilliant trainer, and she's jacked and one of the strongest, most fit people in the world, sent me these workouts, but they're strength workouts. And I don't particularly like them. This is something that I'm struggling with right now. So I promised myself I would do 2 rounds of her workouts. I dislike it so much. I really dislike it so much because it's strength stuff, meaning like things like 3 sets of 4, 3 sets of 6. That's not how I work out. I'm 56 years old. I'm not trying to be Mr. Olympia. I like 8 to 12 reps. I like the workout. I don't like long rests in between sets. I like boom, boom, boom. I like the workout to be with where I'm throwing around weight, but it's also cardiovascular. You know what I mean? But I'm struggling right now because I promised myself that I would do 2 rounds of this, but I hate it so much. So, but I've decided that I think that the promise I made to myself is more important than these next 2 months of doing exactly what I want to do in the gym, But these are all things that are new to me. Trying these new things, walking a new path. And like I said, I've gotten more curious as I've gotten older. And maybe I don't know what I don't know. Maybe at the end of this, I'm going to be like, holy shit, I like this so much, So it's all about trying things and seeing what works for you, So I don't want you to take this as be like, I listen to a lot of those wellness podcasts and a lot of that shit. And a lot of those people have such God complexes about what's right for you. But if you listen to the wellness community, it's so crazy because the wellness community is like things like, hey, you have to eat red meat or you're going to die. But the wellness community is also like, hey, don't eat red meat or you're going to die. Right. And they all have studies and they all have, right. You got to do what works for you. Don't just listen to one podcast or read one article or see one advertisement. I've done all that shit. I'll tell you about all the supplements that I tried like that, where I was like, I read one article. I was like, that looks good. I want to do that. And I did it for like a month. And I'm like, why is my poop green? It shouldn't be green. And I don't feel better. Things like that. So, it's going to be a little bit of everything, guys. And I like I said, I'm still kind of working through exactly how this is going to be. I think I'm going to beat it out. I have a notebook. I wrote all this stuff down. So in my mind, I think the show will be about 15, 20 minutes long, and it's going to cover everything in my life. I need to hear it out loud. I need to make sure that I'm going down my checklist and doing the things that are the most important to me every day. And the only way to do this, I found, and I'm 56 years old. I've tried everything else. I've tried the lists and all that stuff. And by the way, lists have been amazing for me, but it's me again holding myself accountable. And it's easy for me to let myself down. This is like a list, but with you guys, right? Even if there's only one person watching, I don't want to let that person down. So I'm excited to do this. And as you see me turning pages, I wrote a whole bunch of stuff down, but I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't read it. But it's important for you guys to know that I'm far from perfect. I think I'm the most flawed person that I know. And that's just because I know all my flaws, and they are plenty. So I'm not sitting here on some soapbox pretending to be some dude who doesn't have problems. You know, I got a ton of them. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, we're going to talk about them here. But I do want to tell you a couple things. The things that for me are important when I start out a day. Okay. And these are the things that I know make me feel good. And by the way, the reason I know lists work is because when I was a single dad living in a 1-bedroom apartment with the 3 kids in Hollywood, trying to be a stand-up, I had a notebook that I have somewhere in here. Oh, my notebooks are stacked in my closet. I had a notebook that was just called 3 things. And I made sure that I did, and I wrote it down. I made sure I did 3 things, at least 3 things for myself in my career every day. You know, being a single dad and having zero money and getting the kids to school and back and dinner and homework and clean, you know, your day goes like that. And it's easy to forget about yourself. And I do believe this world is energy driven. And those 3 things a day kept pushing the energy forward. You know, my motto was keep your legs moving. That's what I would tell myself every day. Dude, just keep your legs moving. If I stopped moving my legs, my idea was that life would push me backwards. If I moved my legs, I would either stand still and push against life, or I would move forward. But the minute that I stopped moving my legs, life would just push me backwards. And so I made sure I did 3 things every day. It could have been 3 easy things, 3 phone calls. Maybe some days 3 phone calls is all I had time for. Or maybe some days I had 3 hours to write and to 3 things. I did 3 things every day. And so that is really the basis of this. This is like a list on steroids, you know. Speaking of which, I one of the things that I think I'm going to start this journey with you guys is I think I'm going to get on some testosterone. I did get tested and I'm pretty low. I'm excited to see what that does for my workouts and all that stuff, because I've never felt low energy or problems with workouts or energy around that, you know, house or any of that shit. I will say though, I'm not looking forward to being hornier. I do hear that 56, I'm too tired to be horny all the time. Oh my God. That seems like a bummer to be that. I honestly, it's the one thing I'm not looking forward to. I want the testosterone for the energy and the workout and the recovery and just mood. I don't want to be horny all the time. Oh my God. Exhausting. I never, you know, when my testosterone started to drop, looking back, and I could see the horniness fade a little bit. When I didn't want to fuck all the time, Beth and I had a lot more free time during the day. I was like, well, there's a lot of hours. I'm not thinking about fucking all the time. There's a lot of hours today. It's why you see old guys develop like habits like woodworking and bird watching, because you're like, well, I don't want to fuck all the time. I guess there's something else I got to do, you know? But the things that I like to do to start off, these are the things that I do for me in the morning. If I can do these all before noon, the day is great. My morning walk with my dog, Indiana Jones, is meditation for me. Headphones on. I put a walking meditation on. Headphones on. I think the meditation I listen to, it's not that long. It's 15 minutes. Easy. And then I do this 5-minute manifestation podcast with Lovey. I forget her last name. I'll look it up. I do those two things. And then I use the rest of the walk to either talk to Indiana or call my mom. I usually talk to my mom for like 30 or 40 minutes every morning. Call my friends. It's just such a great place to check in with life for me. And my walk with him is truly the most peaceful, joyful hour and a half of most days. And when I'm on the road, I really do miss it. So the walk is also the meditation. My vitamins, I just started taking some peptides, capsules. I don't want to carry needles on the plane with me. I started taking BPC 157, this thing called GHKCU, which is like skin stuff. What's the other one I take? Dihexa, because I've been having a lot of brain fog. And not like the weed brain fog, but just like not being able to find words on stage, and especially when I'm doing crowd work and talking to people, to not be able to find words is a real bummer. So those are the three. Oh, I'm also taking something called methylene blue, which I was going to take in liquid, but I travel so much, I'd rather just take whatever I can take in capsules. I take those at least an hour before food or whatever else I put in my stomach. I'm going to get a blood test next week, which I'll share with you guys. I got to go next week to get a CAT scan on my heart. I'm going to share with you guys. Then the gym. And on this workout schedule, I do. And by the way, the walk is anywhere from 2 to 4 miles every morning. Then I take my vitamins and my supplements. I can go over that list with you, or I can just write it on the website. And then the one that I'm really not good at, that I really do try to get better at, and I try to do it on the walk, is gratitude. And I am so grateful. Holy fuck. I started to think about this the other day. And, because so often I spend so much time in my life, in my career, comparing myself to other people. Why don't I? Why can't I? Why do they? Why does he? And I started to think on a walk one morning, I'm in the 1% of the people, my career, in the 1% of people who have ever done this job. In the 1%. I've succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. I remember I hit a goal, the only goal I had as a kid, in 2015. And it kind of fucked me up for a couple of years, because then I was like, well, now what? But the goal was to have a talk show called The Josh Wolf Show on TV. Had it. I mean, it was only on for 6 episodes, but it was funny as fuck. It was really good. I'm super proud of everything we did on that show. But another example of me, in my brain, not doing enough to push the ball across the goal line. But so those are the 5 things. If I can start my mornings with those things and make sure that I'm done by noon, and this podcast is going to be included on this list now, man, the day's going to be great. The day's going to be great. And now what I need to do is I'm going to make sure that I write myself a work schedule. If I don't have a schedule, and if I float, I'm going to put it on a whiteboard over here, which you can't see. And I'll float. I'll do shit, but around the house, so errands and stuff like that. But again, not things for me. I keep myself busy, so it's not like, oh, you didn't do anything today. I am never doing nothing. Well, that's not true. I am doing nothing sometimes. But I make it seem like I had a busy day, and then I look down at my list of things that I needed to do for me and my job, or make myself feel better. And those are the ones that aren't completed, right? I'm hoping that this show is the beginning of stopping all that. Let me tell you a funny story, and then I'm going to go. I travel a lot. And one thing's when and I'm in a lot of cities. And one thing you see when you're in a lot of different cities is, the people who live in the cities, which include the homeless people. And the homeless people are just different no matter what city you go to. They have different attitudes. Portland homeless people are like the zombies in 28 Days Later. They're quick. you know, and San Diego has like the mouth open Walking Dead, you know. But New Orleans, and I'll tell you what, two of the funniest. Okay, I'll tell you what happened to me in New Orleans, but let me tell you two of the funniest interactions I've ever had. One was in Portland. You know, I'm a very casually dressed dude and always have some scruff. And just walking down the street, and this dude, homeless guy, goes to me. He goes, "Hey, you got any change?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "Yeah, you look like you wouldn't." I gave him money. I was like, "Well, look, I'm going to tell that story over and over again. So you deserve a little money for writing, but a little less than I would have given you for the insult, you know?" And then one time in Seattle, I was driving down the street and I saw a dude with a sign up that said, "We'll fuck for food." So I pulled over, you know? And because I was so curious, I just walked up to him and I said, "Hey, dude, how's that going?" And he gave me the best dude answer ever. He looked at me and he goes, "Nothing yet," which is basically his way of saying it just takes one, man. And this sign was a success or a success or success, however you want to put it. But this one in New Orleans stuck with me, man. It was me, Beth, my daughter-in-law, her husband, and 5 grandkids. I got 5. I got 6, but I got more than 6, but there were 5 there. And this woman walked up to us and she smelled so bad. So bad. And she kept getting close. And, you know, we kept backing up, not because she was homeless, but because she smelled so bad. And she had seen me. I had some money in my hand and I had put it in my pocket. And she talked like this. And she said, "Hey, got some money?" And I said, "No." And she, dude, it fucked me up. She looked at me and she goes, "I hate you." It was so personal. I go, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I hate you." And she goes, "You know what? You almost dead." I said, "What do you mean I'm almost dead?" She goes, "Look at you, old as fuck. Look how old you are. You almost dead. You should probably keep your money." And I was like, by the way, not a terrible New Orleans accent. Thank you. But and then she walked away and I was laughing because "you almost dead" made me laugh. What a thing to say to somebody. "You almost dead. I hate you." But it was so, and my grandkids were just like, "What the fuck?" They could not believe what was happening. I was laughing the whole day. The whole day I was just like, that is unbelievable. But it stuck with me. Because you know what? You know, some people are like, are they crazy or do they know everything? I met one homeless person the night that I met Lucinda Williams in a bar in Seattle. Her tour bus pulled up. I was touring with Larry the Cable Guy. And we were talking. And we ended up going to a Christmas party at her house. It was crazy. But then when we got back. But at that bar that night, I saw this dude with a notebook, one of the big ones, you know. When I look down like this, there's a screen here with my face on it, which is very distracting. But so there was a guy with a big notebook and perfect sketches with perfectly drawn straight lines, perfect, like 3-dimensional looking drawings. And he was just, you know, fingering, no, going through the notebook. I hope he wasn't fingering his notebook. And I sat down next to him because I was so curious. And I said to him, I go, "These your drawings?" And he goes, "That's right." And he was one of those dudes, like, you know, like Leonardo DiCaprio. If he wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio, sometimes you'd look at him, you'd go, sometimes it's a hard line between homeless and billionaire. Not that Leo's a billionaire, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes you're like, is he homeless or does he have more money than everybody else? I can't tell. And that was one of these, that was this guy. I said, "What's with the drawings?" And he goes, I go, "Did you draw those?" He goes, "I did." "Did you draw them by hand?" He said, "I did." I said, "You drew the lines that straight?" and those objects that perfectly by hand? And he said, yeah. I said, are you like an artist? And he said to me, he goes, no, I'm the architect of time. And that's when I knew he wasn't a billionaire. He was homeless. But I go, you're the architect of time? He goes, yeah. I go, you invented time? He goes, no. But I'm the architect of it. Which I didn't quite get. So he built time. And we talked. I bought him drinks and we talked, man. This dude was either brilliant or crazy or both. But it was amazing. And he was telling me stories about things that happened a long time ago, clearly before he was alive, or was it? In such great detail, I was blown away. I was high. So I was like, is he crazy or is he maybe the architect of time? And I remember I was leaving that night and he goes, let me walk you back to the hotel. And I thought, probably not a good idea. I don't need this guy knowing where I'm staying, you know? I go, I'm good. He goes, no, there's a lot of people out there to get to your hotel, because he had heard where I was staying when I was talking to Lucinda. He goes, you got to walk. Either way you walk, you got to walk under a bridge. It's not going to be great. He said, but none of those guys will fuck with you if you're walking with me. I said, why? He goes, because they know I'm the architect of time. He said, I can erase them from history. And I thought, well, he could be crazy, but this is worth a shot. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, what the hell? Might as well. I knew I could beat him up, I think. I'm not a tough guy, by the way. But I'm fast. And I'll throw one punch and outrun you, you know? But yeah, it's funny. Like sometimes they border between, is this person really talking to Jesus? Why are all the homeless people, when they're talking out loud, either talking to Jesus or the CIA? It's a weird thing. Anyways, I am officially, and I knew this would happen, 15 minutes longer than I wanted this to be, because I don't know when to shut the fuck up. But I hope you go with me on this journey. And when I say this is for me, it's for me, but my hope is that it helps us. Like I said, well, as I've gotten older, being of service and helping other people are two things that bring me more joy than almost anything. So I hope this helps you get on your path of being accountable to yourself, of doing things for yourself. I hope this journey helps you become more authentically you, because the more authentic me I get, the happier I get. I even caught myself on this episode leaning towards a few white lies that might have made the story better or made me seem more grandiose. And those are little things that I really want to stop doing. I don't need to do extra to impress. One of the things that I need to keep reminding myself is that I am enough, man. Just me, Josh Wolf, however I want to do it. I am enough. And so are you. So thank you all so much for listening to this first episode of Finding Me. I hope we discover this together. And I hope this journey is as fruitful as I know it will be. And I love you, my friends. And we'll see you tomorrow on Finding Me. Later.